Welcome to Salon Conversations. My name is Lisa Conway and I'm your host. For most people, the salon is a space where you take the time out for you. You chat to your stylist or your therapist about anything and everything, and most importantly, you leave feeling refreshed and beautiful. These are the types of conversations that I'm interested in. Sometimes these conversations are with a guest and other times it's just me. But I promise you nothing is off the table because we all love an engaging salon conversation. Welcome to a podcast with me. Yes, again, I love doing the podcasts because I feel like it's a place where I can go a bit deeper and share more with you. So today I wanted to talk about how we price and how we structure things in the hair and beauty salon. I just think, for starters, let's go back to when I first started in the industry was about, actually, I remember it was April 84. So then I got my first job. It took me a while to get a job because lots of hairdressers out there. There was academies and things in the city in Melbourne that were just every month another 30 hairdressers dropped out of the academy where I was, although I think about 30 started and I don't think all of them made it, but let's say 25. So it was a full-time course, and there was another one, Venus, I think it was called, and there was a few academies in the city, and it was a time when people were really being hairdressers. Like, it was just fascinating, and now we cannot imagine that, but that was what it was like. And my first job was in a shopping centre, and it was at High Point Shopping Centre, for anybody who knows anything about Melbourne. No, actually, I tell a lie, I was in Airport West. He had two shops. I started in Airport West, near the airport, of course, and then later on I moved to Maribyrnong, or High Point it was called, Knife Point, some people call it, a bit rude. And I was there for, I think I was about 16 years. But back then we used to charge $26 for a men's haircut. And that wasn't over the top. That was a fancy salon. It was a busy and full salon, but, you know, we probably took 20 minutes to cut somebody's hair. It wasn't like, you know, we weren't doing any shaves or anything fancy. We really weren't. And that's what it is. But, you know, a lot of times I see salon owners who charge about $45 in the same area, the same location. For a men's haircut, we're talking. I can't remember what a ladies' one was. I think it was maybe about double. I don't know, maybe about $60. I can't remember. But I just remember because he had this really big sign up. It was $26 for a men's cut. So the point I'm saying is that is 40 years ago. So we have a problem, right? And I have the privilege of talking to salon owners all the time, and then they say things to me. And one of the most common things is they want to pay their team members more. They don't make enough money to pay the team members more, but they know how hard they work. They want to pay them more, and they just can't. They don't have the money. And so to me, this is really sad, because when we don't have the money as a business owner to pay the team members, then it's a real problem. And I think the real problem is that we don't charge enough. Like, what else is still double the price? Car? A house? No. A coffee? No. I don't know. I don't know anything that isn't changed so drastically, and a haircut hasn't. It's really sad. And so every time you don't put your prices up, every time you think about the cost of living and everybody else and you stay there, you're actually not just hurting yourself, you're hurting the industry, and I really don't like it. And so I can remember the first house that we bought, when it was around that time when it was $26 a haircut. My husband bought the house before I met him, was $40,000. And then we bought one around the corner and renovated, was $105,000. Like, where would you ever get a house for $105,000? Even if you doubled that, where would that happen? And that was in Footscray, both of them. They're well over $1 million now. It just doesn't match. And so if I had my wish, it would be everybody would go to sleep tonight, and when they wake up, everything would be more expensive when it comes to a haircut, a facial, and all of those things, and every hairdresser and beauty therapist would be paid a lot more. I also have the same wish for school teachers. I also have the same wish for ambulance officers and policemen. And I think, you know, the list is long, but I really do think that there isn't enough value put into what we do. They're just not. Like, I just if you are a hairdresser or a beauty therapist listening to this, you know how clever you are. You know how talented you are. So if you are running a salon, you have to have an entrepreneurial streak. You have to know all of that stuff. Or if you don't know it, you need to get somebody to help you with it. And then you've got to be able to mind read, a generation that isn't yours, as in my generation is not the same as the one we're doing now. And they do things very differently, not wrong or right, just differently. You have to be a trainer. You've got to train team members. You've got to be one step away parent at times because, things go wrong with team members and teenagers and all sorts of things. And then it's just a lot. You've got to read people's minds. And when someone says, cut it all off, that means not cut it all off. It means cut a little bit more off than you did last time, like we deal with so many types of people in our community, hair more so because they work with little children and they work with grumpy old men, beauty not so much. It's probably less contained to the width perhaps, but maybe not, depending on what you're in, but it's huge is what I'm trying to say. And so at the core of what I do is I just think we've got to be paid more, right? And so I just want to talk about tiered pricing structure because I think it's something that people think is really complex. It's actually not. So more than happy to help you with it. And if you're watching this and it's past April 2025, then it's done. But if it's before, you can come to my training. It's free. And if it's after, we can give you the recording. So I just think the first thing that happens is we often feel that something is worth a price, not that we are worth that. We think it's what the person will pay. Oh, they won't pay that. So that's why you can't charge it. No, I'm worth that. It's quite often that's a problem to start with. And then I think that the other thing that's really doesn't make any sense at all is that quite often we have a price, let's say $100, right? Let's say it's $100 for a service. So then when someone's not quite as good, we go, oh, make theirs $80 maybe for a trainee or something. And I just think it doesn't have enough thought behind it. And there needs to be a proper tier structure that people understand, that a 5-year-old boy could explain to someone about why that person costs more. And if you can't do that, it's because you haven't done the work. That's all. It's really quite simple, but you have to get your head around why we need to do it. So the first thing I think is when you have one price for what you do. So basically you're saying, I'll give an example in hair products or a shampoo or a cleanser. When you have one cleanser and that cleanser costs $60, you're saying to your client, although you're not really saying it, but you are saying, you're saying, I've got this one and nothing else. Nick off. That's what you're saying. You're saying, this is the one I think you should have and I don't have any more. That's it, go away. So if $60 is what you think is a reasonable price to pay for one, that's fine. But I'm saying there's probably one worth 160 and there's probably one worth 16. Now that's pretty extreme, but there are more than one option for so many things, right? And so I think when a clinic or a hair salon there's this kind of heat protector and there's this kind of heat protector and there's this kind. When you give people a couple of options, then you're not saying, buy the one I reckon or bugger off. You're saying, this one is a really price conscious one, but it's quite good. It's really good. And I think for what you need, it's great. Or you might say, no, I think you really need this one because you have this complexity with what your skin does or your hair does. And I really think this one is good for you. So, for example, you have maybe a shampoo. So a shampoo for someone who doesn't colour their hair, but their hair's young and healthy and that, they could probably have that shampoo. But then if you have someone like me who's got grey hair and gets a dirty tinge, I need silver shampoo. But some of them are more purple, some of them are more blue-based, but I need a professional to say they have a choice of things and then they guide me to the right one. So they don't have one purple shampoo and have this one or bugger off. And I think if you use that example and you use it in a tiered pricing structure, that's exactly what you're doing, right? So what you're saying is my haircut or my facial or my whatever I offer, because of my years of service, is $150. But if you would like to have such and such, she's $120, or you can have someone else and they're $180. So what you're actually saying is, in the same way that the shampoo or the cleanser doesn't have to be overcomplicated because this person wants a trim or this person wants a really simple facial. It's simple. The task is simple. So do they really need to have the surgeon to do it that's been a surgeon for 20 years, or could they have the surgeon who's doing it for 1 year? And sometimes it can be for 1 year, but I think it's not your decision. I think it's the decision of the client. So when you have choices in your product range, when you have choices in your offerings, you're not saying this is it or bugger off. You're saying this is what you could have. And people go, that's all I need. That's fine. It's perfect, right? So in the same way as when we're hungry, you can think, oh, I'll eat anything. I'm just hungry. Like, what have you got? And you'll cook an egg on toast. That's all I need. That's what I feel like. That's what I'm hungry. But sometimes you don't cook an egg on toast. Sometimes you invite friends and you go out for dinner and you want a big wine glass and you want to think about it and read the menu and spend a couple of hours together. But there's nothing wrong with egg on toast, and there's nothing wrong with a fancy dinner. Same when some people come to your house, you might cook up a nice dinner and then you sit on the couch and you eat it, or you sit on the balcony, and other times you set the table and you put candles and the food. There's nothing wrong with the food. It's just matching it for the situation. So if you have clients that you love and want to look after and you want to raise your price, quite often you won't, because you don't want to say no to these clients, and their life and their situation is different. So when you say, well, I used to be $100, now I want to be $120, and you know she struggled to pay that $100. So basically you're saying, well, you've got to pay the $120, or you give her a discount, which sends a message to the other people that they're not as special or whatever. So I just think we need to think a lot more about our pricing structure so that we can get it right. So what you could say is and if you work on your own, this doesn't apply to you, but what you could say is, this is me, and this is Sarah's price, and this is Susie's price. So Sarah, her price is this because, and you say, I can do it in 25 minutes. Sarah's not as quick as me, but she's been trained. This is the thing that she can do really well. She's not as quick as me, and she's just learning her trade. So if you can be a little bit patient, instead of paying the 110, it's okay for you to pay 85, and your client will be ranked, right? Because you cared about her, you bothered to explain why, right? So having a tiered pricing structure is a really lovely way for your team to understand that there is a path to follow, and it's not because you've been here 5 years and you can charge more. No, it's because this person has a really strong following, and it's very easy to book her out because she's just a beautiful therapist, or she's a beautiful hairdresser. She really cares about her clients, and they keep saying, can I have her? Can I have her? Can I have her? So it's not about user service. It's not, because I've worked with hairdressers who've been hairdressing a long time, and I think, mate, you put your scissors home, bugger off. And I've worked with some young kids who I think, wow, look at you go. I remember working with a girl, she was one of the team members, and she's just a kid, like in her 20s. She ended up my daughter. Went to her for her haircuts and remained ever since. And she had 38-hour week, and she did 38 haircuts every week, week in, out. She sold products, and her haircuts were like, I don't know, so a long time ago, like $140, and she was worth every cent. So don't tell me you can't do it. And she was a kid, but she was trained in a salon that really treasured training, and she was keen, and she won a thing and went to London, and she's just a ripper. So there isn't any cap on what you can do, only your belief in what you can do. So I think that it's a really important point. So the tiered structure is really about the expectation, right? So if you expect that your clients can or can't pay it, then that's really uncomfortable for everybody. But if you have an expectation for you and the client, so you think about the expectation from the client who pays $85 instead of $110, her expectation is that it's not going to be as good as you. So the pressure's off. Pressure's off for your team member, because she's paying a different rate, and she's not expecting it to be as polished as you, as fast as you, right? And then if there's something that the person can't manage, she'll come and get help. That's it. So it lowers the expectation for the stylist or the therapist, because this is really where she feels she fits. So her confidence goes up, right? When you ask one of your team members to take over one of your clients because you're going to be on holidays, and the first thing she says, I can't do her. She only wants you. And there's this whole panic. But when you say, I will be on holidays, if you like, you can have Sarah, And the good news about you having Sarah is my fee is 110, but Sarah's is 85. And that's because Sarah's hasn't been around as long as me, but she's beautiful and you'll just love her. Now, with a bit of luck, she might stay with Sarah, right? And then you release yourself, and that hour that you would have to do Mrs. Jones, you're not doing anymore. You're spending that hour growing your business. And that's when the money shows up, right? So the tiered structure is only one solution to where does my money go? Why can't I make the money I want to pay my team? But it's a very important part of the solution. But if you don't have a proper plan around it, and we don't have a tiered structure for everything, some things we just don't. We don't have a tiered structure. I never had a tiered structure for a treatment at the basin, but I didn't do them. So it's not an option. I didn't have a tiered structure for the children's cut. I just didn't do them. I felt that I just didn't want to do them anymore. So if you have a children's haircut, maybe that's $30 and that's what it is, but it's done by the second-year apprentice. End of story, right? Now, if they want to have a haircut with me, they should be allowed to. And if they want to have the haircut with me, it's exactly the same price as a men's haircut. That's it. And we've all seen TikToks on the kids wriggling all around the shop, eating the lollies and making a damn mess of the place. They'd leave you, bye. And now you've got to wipe up lollipop gunk stuck to the window and all of that. Like, you're pretty lucky in the beauty department, let's just say. You don't have to deal with the kids. And I like kids, but I would do their haircut in 6 minutes. You give that to a junior, they're going to take, if it took 20 minutes, they're going to take 40. And it's just horrific to watch, you know. So not only you have to be really good at what you're doing, you've got to interpret what the kid wants, what the mother wants. Then it's a moving target. Like, let's just charge them double, mate. Anyway, bit of a rant there, but you can give people options. You know, there's lots of options. You can also say that we don't do any children's haircut on the weekend, or you might say we don't do in the beauty, I don't know what it would be, but you just say we just don't do those things. I see beauty salons and I look at their menu and I think, why are we doing all of these things? Oh, clients like it. And I go, well, how many clients actually have that done? And then they do research and they go 2 a month. I said, well, delete it. Why are we still training people on a skill that we do 2 a month? Like, get really good at what you do and just do that. And no one's going to shoot you if you don't do pedicures anymore or manicures. Why are we doing those things? Like massage, why are we doing that? I don't understand. I just think really get keen on the things that light you up, that you love, and get a reputation for that. And a niche is an inch wide, but it's a mile deep when you can really hone in those skills. And so I think when you are working a lot of hours on the floor, it's really hard to set up a proper tiered structure, right? When you're doing all of these things, it's very hard to do the training for people. So therefore, you'll always be stuck, right? The other thing I will say to you is there needs to be anybody who does the tiered structure. Quite often you run into problems, which is good because we've always got to have problems. But the problem we used to have was it was $100 or bugger off. And now you've got the problem where people are booking in for a complex treatment of sorts, asking for the younger person, and the younger person can't do it. I think, well, that's not the customer's fault. They shouldn't be able to click on it. Like if they want to have, you know, a fancy balayage or whatever, and the person's not trained to do it, then don't open that panel for her so they can't book it. Like if you want a balayage, you've got 3 people and these who they are. They're trying to click the cheap one. They can't click the cheap one, right? And even if there's still an error and they go, oh, I'll have that, and then they get in and they want more than they booked in for, I just think, why can't you call them when the booking comes in and just say, just a courtesy call to make sure now, did you have a picture of before or after? And this doesn't really happen in beauty. This is a hair problem because we've all got thick hair, thin hair, long hair, shoulder length hair. Like everybody says shoulder length hair because they think it's cheaper, and often it is. And I think, well, that's silly because sometimes people have long hair and it's really thin. So why are they being charged more? Because it's long? She's got 6 hairs on her head, love. Whereas look how thick my hair is. You should just see me coming and see dollar signs because my hair's thick, it's wavy, it's hard to blow wave. I know that. I had this head of hair my whole life. I don't want them doing a half-assed job because they're resentful that I've got a lot of hair. Just tell me at the start. Oh, at least I can't wait to cut your hair. You've got 3 heads of hair there, love. Instead of the, I don't know what it would be at home, 120, it's 130. Is that okay with you? And I could do a great haircut and I couldn't give a shit. So we've got to get to the stage where we're confident. And what we do that doesn't help our up and coming is we don't have a tiered structure. And it's just ridiculous. Like if a business class flight was exactly the same as the economy, your customers would be, oh, what's going on here? Why is that the same? It's confusing. It's not fair. It costs a lot more to deliver. They've got big fat seats and whatever else. It just isn't right. And I think we need a tiered structure. If you've got more than one person in your business, you need a tier structure. If you've got more than 3 or 4, you've got a big problem. You need it now. So it's just one of the things that I think we haven't given enough thought to. And that's okay, because I didn't at first. But I kept running up against the challenge of not being able to hand over a team member because I'm expecting the client to take on this new team member at the same price. It's just ludicrous, absolute rubbish. So I learned that the tiered structure done well is absolutely beautiful. It's a game changer. And I'll end on this story that, because the thing is, I get to hear everything, which is really cool. Someone I know that put the person's price up like ridiculously. So let's say it was $140 and they said, bugger him, let's make it $220. They didn't tell him. It was a family member. And the clients didn't care. The only way he found out is one of his clients said, how come your price went up? He goes, did it? He goes, yeah, I don't do that shit anymore. Yes, I let them do that. I just do as I'm told. Just know your strengths. And if your strength isn't taking money off clients and your strength is doing the skill and clients leaving just absolutely delighted because you looked after them, then just do that and let someone else take over. It's just so many people I've worked with, they can't say what the price is or it's gone up. The minute they think the person's got 5 cents missing, they go, oh, pay next week, They shouldn't be allowed anywhere near the cash register at all. So just celebrate who you are. Just know your strengths. Tiered pricing is a brilliant thing, but it takes a bit of getting your head around it. But when you do, it's absolutely brilliant. It's a game changer, and I would love to give that to you. So if this is before the 8th of April, be my guest. If it's after, you can ask for the link to the training. Lovely to talk to you. Thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed that conversation and had a laugh along the way. If you want some more information on what was just discussed, or even just to connect with me, just check out the links in the show notes. Also, it would mean the world to me if you would like and share this podcast so that we can continue to grow together. I'll see you all next week.